Welcome to the Domain Name Wire podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Alleman, and this is episode number 565. When I was at NamesCon last month, I moderated a panel with domain investor Braden Pollock. On stage, he mentioned he was having a record year with 8 figures worth of domain sales. So I reached out to Braden to see if he'd share more. He sent over a list of all of his sales for the year so far, totaling about $11 million when we talked last Thursday. On today's show, we will talk about some of those sales and Braden's strategy. We also discuss how he was cash flow negative for some years as a domain investor to build up his portfolio, which is allowing him to be cash flow positive now. First, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor this week is Salve.com's domain auctions. Want to liquidate some of your domains before the end of the year? Try Salve's domain auctions. There's no gatekeeping, so you can list any of your domains for sale. I've sold a few through Salve auctions. It was quick and easy, and there's a great transfer process. Best of all, sellers pay just a 4% commission on their domain sales. Learn more and start selling your domains today. Go to salve.com/DNW/sell. That's SAV.com/DNW/sell. Let's talk about some news in the domain business from the past week before we chat with Braden. First up, the Los Angeles Rams NFL team lost a UDRP it filed against the domain Rams.com. The team uses therams.com. Rams.com was acquired by Canadian domain investor Frank Mardian, also known as Maple Dots, in 2022 for $50,000 Canadian. He had a broker reach out to the football team to see if it was interested in buying it, but this offer was after another company offered him $2 million for the domain. The panel noted that people are allowed to invest in generic, dictionary, and short domain names, and found in Frank's favor. John Berryhill represented the domain owner in this case. John also represented a domain owner in a case last week found in favor of the registrant. In that case, the domain Gabler.com, that's Gabler.com, and the complainant thought it was filing the dispute against a dead man with the surname Gabler. Read about that decision in a post from December 10th. In other news, Newfold Digital announced that its existing private equity investors, Clearlake and Cirrus, were infusing another $100 million into the company. It was somewhat coy about what the money would be used for, but one thing I'm wondering is if the company will go after top-level domains next year. Domain name registrar Name.com announced some reseller wins last week, noting that Bolt, Vercel, and Anything are using its new API to enable domain registrations. Anything just upgraded its domain to anything.com, by the way. There's more news at domainnamewire.com, but now let's chat with Braden. My guest this week is Braden Pollock. Braden, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back.
So, Braden, you and I were on stage at NamesCon in early November, and I asked everyone how their year was going, and yours is going very well. So tell me, from a top-line perspective, we're recording this December 11th, so we're not even through the full year now, but what's your total gross sales this year?
At the moment, it's close to 11 million, and I've got some pending deals. We're recording this December 11th, and there's usually a flurry of activity the last few weeks. I had a sale this morning. I think I had a sale day before yesterday. So I've got some pending deals that in the range of several $1 million that could close by the end of the year.
So fingers crossed that some of those close. If not, you'll get a head start on next year too. So first of all, congratulations. That's fantastic. How does that compare to 2024?
24 last year was 6.5.
6.5. So quite an increase. Why do you think your numbers are up this year?
Better inventory. I've been buying like crazy the last 4 or 5 years. I've been buying a lot of really good inventory. So it's bigger swings, right? So when a name sells now, it can sell for in the 7 figures. I've had several of those this year. So that makes up, I think, most of the difference.
All right. And so you sent me a spreadsheet of your sales, and most of them with the sales prices. A few of them are under NDA, but you have 53 domain sales as of today, December 11th. As you said, you hope to sell some more before the end of the year. Tell me, I know a lot of these are great domains that people come to you for. Are all of your sales inbound, or do you also have some brokers working outbound on these?
No, I've got some brokerage. Daniel Koloshukin and Andrew Miller at Helco sold a few this year. Some sold on Atom, some sold at 101 Domains.
At 101 Domains?
Yeah.
Or 101domain.com, I assume?
101 Domain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say they sold there, what do you mean? Because they use like Afternic Network, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they do acquisitions.
Oh, on behalf of clients. Okay, yeah, 101 Domain.
So, I mean, I guess that would be inbound.
Yeah. And so for those that aren't familiar, 101domain.com, they're known for carrying just about every top level domain, partially as a result, or maybe it's the other way around. They have a lot of corporate customers, so they can reach out and say that they're interested in a domain name.
And they do a lot of acquisitions internationally, more than most people realize.
So this year, around 11 million, up significantly from 6 point something last year. And how much you said you've been acquiring a lot. I know when we had you on the show early in the year, you mentioned millions of dollars of acquisitions. I think that the prior year. Help me understand this year, how many millions of dollars have you spent on domains?
Okay, I can do that. Let me look at my spreadsheet. I am at the moment, and I've got some deals pending, but at the moment I've spent over 4 million, 4.2 million.
Significant amount. And you're primarily buying from corporations that have domains they aren't using anymore?
All over the place. I'm on GoDaddy auctions. I'm buying from other investors. I'm buying from corporations. I'm buying through IP management firms. There's hunters that'll bring me deals. You name it. Bankruptcy attorneys, all over the place.
Okay. So here's the interesting thing to me, because you have some big sales. So for example, the largest this year that's public is Fuse.com for $2.1 million. You sold R.org for $375K. Just.com is on a payment plan, but at $472. And then you've got some other big names we'll talk more about, like Snowball.com, Odyssey.com, Sword.com, that are under NDA, but are obviously very big. But you also, if I'm looking here, your median sale is more like 15,000. Is that fair to say?
I do a number of sales that are smaller sales. Tour.coms, OneWord.nets, and orgs, codes, IOs. And those, I call those inventory quality. So I might sell 15 in a year, 15 6 and 7 figure names, and then 43 or 4 and 5 figure names. And I mean, that's how we keep the lights on, right? It's those smaller sales. The sale I had today was $3,500, which are great. I love those. The one I had, it was yesterday, I think, was $8,500. And that's just inventory names. Those are easy to replace.
Yeah, but I want to challenge you a little bit on that, because, if I add up, so all your domains that sold for under $10,000, I see 20 of them ranging from just $1,000 to $10,000. If I add up the sales value on all of those, it's under 100K. So as you've scaled up, I know for a while, maybe it was $1 million in revenue a year, but now that you're into 8 figures this year, we're talking like these 20 sales made up, less than 1% of your revenue.
I said 4 and 5 figure sales.
But
you just added up the 4 figures.
I did, but still it's about 20 sales out of the 53 so far. So I guess my question for you is, as you scale up and get to these much bigger sales, as you improve the quality of your inventory, does it really make sense to still play around with those 4-figure domains?
Yeah, I've asked myself that question many times over the last roughly 20 years. And the answer is yes. And the reason is because I'm looking at the auctions anyway. I see what is coming up for sale. It's either sent to me or I find an auction, and I can quickly determine what I think it's worth and place a bid. I'll place a proxy bid and walk away. And then, I have a portfolio manager, and she posts it on the marketplaces, and when it sells, it sells. It's really not a lot of time. There was a point where I was doing exactly what you said, like not wasting the time on the smaller names, focus on the bigger names. And the smaller names were going by, and I'd see a name sell, I think it's worth 25 grand. It sells for 2. And I think that was a good deal. And I saw it and I didn't bid on it. I should have just bid on it. I saw it, right? I could have just placed a bid. And so it really only takes me a few seconds to place a bid. I don't spend a lot of time researching for small names. That's the answer is yes, because I don't put a lot of time into it. No, I'm not putting a lot of time that I'm not already spending.
Okay. So you're going through the expire list anyway. You're not just looking for these 6-7 figure value names. So why not just buy it? Especially because you have someone who takes care of kind of the dirty work there, if you will, of getting them listed, that sort of thing.
When I place a bid, So, and also, I'm not going through all the expired inventory myself. I'm reading newsletters. I'm seeing what kind of floats to the top and seeing what most people are bidding on. That's usually the better names. And so I'll place a bid. And if I win the bid, then Allie takes care of everything from there, right? And it obviously costs money to pay her salary, but to me, it's worth it because she does everything. She pays for it. She accepts the name. She prices it. She places it on the marketplace. She does all of those things.
She does the pricing, or do you tell her the pricing?
I've been teaching her pricing over the last couple of years, and she's pretty good. And what happens is she creates a spreadsheet and puts the pricing on a spreadsheet, sends it to me, and then I can adjust. So we do that kind of in batches.
Got it. So the other thing here is that you have about 15 of the names here out of 53 as of today are lease to owns, ranging from a $2,000 name that I won't mention because I have no idea why it meant anything to anyone, but good on you. And then up to Jest.com that sold for Jest.com for $472,000.
Now I want to know what name that is. That doesn't mean anything to anybody.
June 11th. If there's something here I'm missing, you can tell me.
Yeah. Okay. $2,000. Yeah. So the name is Wet Reckless, which is actually kind of a funny story. So Wet Reckless in California is kind of like a DUI.
Oh, okay.
You hire a lawyer, and if you can plead it down from a DUI, which is a criminal offense, to a wet reckless, that is considered a moving violation and is non-criminal.
Got it.
All right. That's why I own it, because it's a legal term.
Right. And you have a lot.
The guy who bought it is a surfer. And I don't know if it's even, I never look up my name.
Let's take a look.
So he's coming out with a clothing line or something. It's not even.
He hasn't done anything with it.
But he's doing something that's surfing related.
Okay.
Which is,
see, my head was in the gutter thinking this was an adult themed domain or something like that. So,
legal term.
and so, and you have lots of other legal terms, of course, your background. You do a lot of legal leads, legal SEO, that sort of things. CentralTexasLawyer.com is on here. I noticed ChicagoDUILawyers.com, a number of these, which gets back into knowing, especially when you see a legal name, I think you have a pretty good idea on if it's good or not, if it's in your kind of purview in your neighborhood. So why not bid on it when you're going through the process?
Yeah, actually, I really don't anymore, just because I've had so many and they're very slow movers. They don't sell for a lot. That one, actually, I've had for 9 years. I picked it up on a drop, uncontested, $59.
Help me understand that. So I've had, I've come across some legal names and I'm like, oh, this is great. And lawyers make a lot of money. Why do they not spend much on domains?
They just don't see the value. It's very real. Even the premium names, right? Even the, personalinjury.com or accidentlawyer.com, they don't fetch as much as you might think. I have a couple of those 2-word legal names that are 6-figure names and they just don't sell.
Yeah. I mean,
it's very difficult to move.
Same people that are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on leads or SEO, that sort of thing. It's still hard to get them to buy a name.
Right. Billboards and advertising. Yeah. I mean, I know lawyers that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on advertising and SEO, and they have crappy domains. They just don't see the value. Listen, I've been doing it 21 years now, and they just...
Yeah. No, I trust you on that.
So they don't. So like Chicago DUI Lawyer, I have 3 versions of that name. And the 4th version, I think, is developed or something. It's off the market. So I was able to price that a little bit higher just because I control all of those terms, all of the variations of that term. But usually they sell in the $3,500 range.
Yeah, that one was $8,500. But Central Texas Lawyer, for example, you had just $1,000. So
yeah, just to let that one. And that one's not very good. I don't even know why I had that name. I think I have maybe 500 legal names left out of... I used to have about 15,000 of them.
Okay.
Just not focused on that anymore. It's a tough market.
For LTOs, do you offer those only when the person says they can't afford it? When do you go to a lease to own?
So I've enabled them on Afternic. I've enabled them. I use Domain Easy parking pages.
Okay.
And so they're enabled on some of the names there as well. And so sometimes they just come through. And then sometimes I've got a 7-figure LTO right now that was negotiated. A 6-figure, the Jest is a 6-figure that was negotiated. So I do the LTOs if I can't get them over the line, right? They don't have the budget. A lot of times they're startups and they don't have all the money.
What duration are you willing to do on those?
I try to keep it as short as possible. I try to do a year or less. I'm negotiating a 7-figure deal now. They said they need a few months. I'm negotiating a 5-figure that they said 3 months. So it just depends. If I've got a giant, well, not even a giant sale, but if I've got what I consider a good sale and they're paying a good number and they need a longer term, am I going to walk away from a really good deal because they need 3 years as opposed to a year? Probably not. I'll probably do it, but I try to stay away from them.
Let's talk about some of your bigger sales this year. So I'm going to assume, even though I don't know what the NDA ones are, that some of these are the biggest because they're clearly great names. Snowball.com you sold in January, and this is kind of a venture capital company. Tell me about how that sale came to be, if you remember. It was a while ago. Yeah.
Andrew Miller, he did that deal. I believe they came in for a different name. He pivoted them to Snowball because it was... they wanted something that was substantially more money. And so he suggested Snowball. I'm thinking he suggested several names, and that's what they picked. And that was in their budget.
And then let's see, sword.com, that one forwards to swordhealth.com. Was that also one that was brokered for you?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is one where Andrew and his team went outbound to people that would be a good fit for this.
Yeah. And then they brought in a buy-side broker.
Okay. Got it. Some other ones you sold this year. Tinker.com was the most recent one under NDA here. I don't think that's developed yet, but what do you know about that one? How'd that one come about?
That one was inbound.
Okay.
And so it was represented by a broker. I didn't know who the buyer was, but I've since figured out who the buyer was.
Okay.
If you just Google Tinker, you'll figure it out.
Okay. Do that right now, but I won't say it. Everyone listening at home, you can do the same.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah. Got it. And then just looking at some of the more expensive ones that you can talk about. So Fuse.com, that one is under development right now. That was your biggest public at $2.1 million. So Fuse Tech Inc. in Delaware. Do you know what they do?
No,
I don't either. Based on their.
When I sell, the only time I ever know is if I'm talking to the buyer directly, and they tell me. But if it's through a broker, I oftentimes don't know. I mean, Sword is Sword Health. I knew who the buyer was. We had been talking to them for about a year, but Fuse, no idea.
So your biggest non-com, actually was r.org. And that one is a page. This is kind of interesting to me. It's ratings. Or just ratings is a site. It's a sports news site right now. I don't know if that's temporary or not. And then you have a .a on here as well. Your highest .a for 165K is speed.ai. And this one goes to, it's like a call center intelligence type program here. So talk to me about your thoughts on .ai right now.
It's been good for me. I have acquired in total, I'd have to look, 24 or 25. I looked at one point, I don't remember. And I have sold 4 or 5 of them. I'm in the black at this point. I've made all my money back and a profit, and I still have 20 names, worth several $1 million probably. Because they're good. I have really solid.
You still buying, or do you think the opportunity is kind of tapped out here?
It's a pretty frothy market. I think I bought an AI earlier this year. Let me tell you. I bought Legend.ai, and I only had it for 6 months and sold it. Agent Swarm, same thing. I bought and resold that this year.
That was an LTO here for about $45,000.
I bought GGG.ai. We'll see. I bought that this year. That's about it. I'm just looking through my list. I bought a little portfolio, and darkside.ai was in there, but that wasn't very much money. But I didn't go after that. I think that's it. I'm not really buying them just because it's frothy. If somebody brings me something privately, then I'm open to it. But otherwise, they're just so expensive now.
While you have your sheet open, what are some of the other good names you've acquired this year?
Okay. Let me sort by purchase price.
It's a pretty good proxy.
Perch, P-E-R-C-H, Treasure, Validate, Compete, Common, Cultivate, Members, Cable, Regina, Enact, Vellum, Exterior, Serenade, Supper, Portray, Cinematic, Cartwheel, Treasures plural, Swept, Volts, Symmetric, Stimuli, Touring, Quiche, Colette, Frequencies, First Class. I bought software.net. I bought some 3Ls.
Well, I see how you managed to spend $4 million this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, it goes pretty quickly.
So talk to me about one of those. Let's pick one out. Treasure and Treasures. How did you acquire those?
Another investor.
Okay. So this was an investor to investor sale. Okay. What percentage of your buy, this is interesting. Someone commented on Domain Name Wire just today, like, oh, domain investors don't really sell to each other, which I firmly disagree with. But what percentage of your buys would you say are from other investors?
Well, I kind of segment them. So, right. So there's investors that are buy and hold and they just need some cash. Maybe they've had it for years and they need some liquidity. And then there's investors that buy and flip, right? Flippers. And what they'll do is they'll buy it and they'll put on whatever they think they can put on, 20%, and flip it. And then there are hunters or people that are looking for deals for themselves. And if it's too expensive or they don't have the liquidity, they'll bring me the deal and I pay them a finder's fee. So there's several categories. But if you include all those categories, I'm dealing with investors every day.
Okay. Got it. So what do you think you're going to do differently here looking to 2026, right? You've got some brokers working, you bought a lot this year, you sold a lot this year. Is there anything kind of on the horizon or how you're going to approach your business differently in 2026 and 2025?
Yeah, I'm going to do some more outbounding,
okay,
which I don't personally do, but I'm going to start bringing some of that in-house. More on that later.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for that.
Yeah. I'm going to continue buying, especially at the high end. I'm really focused on these big names. While they're expensive, like, a name that's say $400,000 or $500,000 wholesale seems crazy high, but there's not a lot of competition. There's 4 guys out there in buying names at that level and have access. So there's not a lot of competition. I know all of them. We talk about these names as they come up. And those are the names, the higher you go, I believe, the less speculative it is. It's going to hold its value because it's a super premium name.
So Braden, I want to just kind of reiterate something or go back to something here. And that's you've spent a lot of money on domains this year. And it seems like a lot of people talk about selling names, right? And the big prices they get for them. But I often question, obviously, we know your cash flow this year was really strong, but I think there are even a lot of investors out there that don't really cash flow their portfolio and that sort of thing because of those costs. How important do you think it is for domain investors to really talk more about the buy side and their cash outflows?
Yeah, people talk about how much they brought in, maybe even their sell-through rate, which is an important metric. But they forget about what they're spending, right? They don't ask what's being spent on a portfolio. And while this year I have brought in more than I've spent, there are many years where I spent millions of dollars more than I brought in. I mean, that's how I built my portfolio, is I used profits from my other businesses to put into my domain investment business. So I think in 21, maybe I spent over $7 million. And I brought in probably 2. I can go back and look. So totally upside down. So I'm making up for it, right? So while this year is very profitable, and if you go back and you look at the last 20 years, I'm sure it's profitable, but I have to make up for previous years where I spent more than I brought in.
Yeah, I mean, you got to build up your assets, your inventory, right? To be able to have years like this.
But if I stop buying today, right, I'd be selling millions of dollars every year.
You still got the assets.
Yeah. Many, many years, right? And so that's what I do, is lock up the assets while I can.
Yeah, I guess it gets to that, I hate the word flywheel, but it takes a while to get it going as a domain investor. And then once you get up to some critical mass, especially if you aren't doing much outbound, then it can start to really flow like it is now.
Well, I don't know why you don't like the word flywheel.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily pertains in this case.
But it is, right? So you need to have inventory. You need to put the inventory into the machine for the sales to happen out the other side. And I built up that inventory. And so I could stop at any point. I don't want to. The relationships that I've cultivated all these years have led me to this place where I can acquire this inventory, which most people can't, right? They've got public auctions and that's it. But I've got these relationships where I can get inventory before it hits the market. People often ask, how did you find that name? Like, well, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I talked to someone at NamesCon who has a big portfolio who stopped buying a few years ago. He's like, okay, what's going to happen when I stop? And so far, it hasn't really dented, because he's got so many names. Now, over time, theoretically, it would, but, over time can be a pretty long period of time too, depending on how many names you have and the quality of them.
Yeah. And I think I know who you're talking about. I think he still has 40,000 names.
Yeah, a lot.
So that portfolio will continue generating sales for him, even if he doesn't buy new inventory.
Yeah.
And he's spending a lot less work, right? He's spending more time with his family and a lot less work on his portfolio.
Speaking of sell-through rate, just how many names are in your portfolio?
I think I just cracked 1,800.
Okay, so it's pretty small. Your sell-through rate is relatively high then. We're talking, like 3 to 4%, somewhere in there, but, higher quality names. So
yes, I bought just over 200 names this year. I've sold about 50. You're better at public math than I am.
Well, okay. So you've grown a net of 150. So let's just take it off 1,800 and, let's just take 50 off 2,000. We're talking about a 4% sell-through rate, which is really good. It's fantastic. So
it is at the higher end of sell-through rates in this business. I attribute that to buying just quality inventory, not buying brandables. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just very, very hard. I buy generic words, usually with .com at the end, and then sell. It just takes time.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Braden, it's always great talking to you. Congratulations on your record year this year. And it's always inspiring to hear this. But I think it's also for smaller domain investors that are like, well, I don't have $4 million to spend. I think it's important to think about kind of how you built this up over time. And it took a lot of investment to get to where you are today. So appreciate you coming on and talking about that. We will, of course, see you in January at the ICA meeting, right?
Indeed, you will.
Awesome. So if anyone wants to talk to Braden and get ideas from him or anything like that, come on down to Vegas next month. There'll be a lot for those that aren't familiar with the event, with the ICA annual meeting. It's small and intimate, right? So it's an opportunity to talk to a lot of domain investors. So
join the ICA. We need to represent this industry and help protect us and our assets. And that's what the ICA does. So check out ICA.Vegas. That's our conference. And it is small and intimate. And you can connect with the board and all the people that have been in the space a long time. They're all coming.
Awesome.
It's a great event.
Well, thanks so much, Braden.
Yeah, thank you.
My guest this week has been Braden Pollock. That is a wrap on this week's Domain Name Wire podcast. You can listen to all previous episodes at dnw.com/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.